Hello everyone. So in this video we are going to discuss the PSIR Mains Optional Paper 2025. So we'll give you the structure and the overview of the questions being asked, the nature of the questions, the kind of questions being asked by UPSC in Mains Optional PSIR paper. That how challenging, what was the nature of the question, it was moderate or it was a direct question. So this video is about the discussion on paper 2. We'll come up with the discussion on PSIR paper 1 also, okay, in the next video. So both papers I'm going to discuss, and with the discussion you will get the model answers. So model answers are not it's not like that you can produce such answers in the 10th situation of the mains exam, but model answers should give you the broader overview that these are the points which you should have written in this particular question. Okay, so focus should be on the pointers, that whether we are mentioning the name of all the scholars, whether we are bringing all the points which needs to be written in the context of the question. What should be the framework? What should be the structure? Okay, so this model answer PDF we will attach in the link. You will get the link of the PDFs in the description of the video. So for both paper 2 and paper 1, you will get the model answers also. Also, another announcement with the discussion is that we are launching the new PSIR batch from 20th of November. Okay, so 20th of November we are launching the new PSIR optional batch. Okay, so last two optional batches we started in May and June. So the next batch will start from 20th of November. So let's start our discussion on the questions. Okay, so now the first question itself, always what I believe is the most challenging question is the compulsory question in both the papers and both the parts. That is the first question, which is the compulsory question, which we need to attempt, as you have to write in 150 words. There is no choice, and you have to attempt this question. So from my personal experience of writing mains, first question consumes a lot of time, and this is the time when our nerves are getting settled also. So from the first go we have to write, and we can't skip this. 5 answers we have to write. We try to write the best of the answers. So this question consumes a lot of time, and we left with less of the time to attempt the other 4 questions. So first thing we need to keep it in mind while writing our mains is to try to do justice to all the questions which we'll write, to all the answers which we'll write in our mains exam, and try to finish the first question as soon as we can. This will calm down our nerves, but this is what exactly the challenging part is. And if the question first part itself is like this, which is bit tricky to write. Okay, normally not being if you do not know about the content and just know the reference of something, it becomes more challenging to write. So this is a question which has been it is like tilted or out of the context question, not being mentioned as such in the syllabus, because when we see the syllabus, the approaches we have the traditional approaches, and under behavioral revolution we have modern or behavioral approaches. The traditional approaches are historical, philosophical, legal, institutional, and empirical, and we have a list of modern approaches: system approach, structural functional approach, political sociology, political economy. So I'm sure you are aware of these approaches. Now nowhere it is written the psychological approach. Okay, so discuss the psychological approach to study comparative politics. So first thing which a student should write, because it is just 150 words, you should write the difference between comparative government or comparative politics. So when we study only institutions, then it becomes comparative government, and comparative politics became truly comparative under behavioral evolution when we study. So, when we study only institutions, then it is comparative government. But when we study beyond institutions, when we study socio-economic, cultural, and psychological factors. So, this is, I hope, those who have done PSIR Foundation with me, it is in your notes that when we study socio-economic, cultural, and psychological factors, then it becomes comparative politics. So, in comparative politics, or comparative politics is beyond the study of institutions and constitutions. If you see, if you remember, Aristotle has compared the constitution. So technically that was not comparative politics, that was comparative government. So comparative politics is study beyond institutions and constitutions, and when we study socio-economic, cultural, and the psychological factors. Okay, we are trying, and what is psychology? Psychology is the study of human behavior. So we cannot take away the behavior of the human. So if we have to compare the politics of two countries, then we need to understand the psychology of the leaders of these two countries. So when we are comparing the psychology of the leaders of the two countries, then we are doing what? Comparative politics. So as such, psychological approach is not being mentioned, but psychological leaders psychology can help us to impart comparativeness to the comparative politics. Okay, so you need to frame an answer for this question. It is not a direct it's not a very direct, it's like you cannot have a ready-made answer for this question. You need to frame an answer for this question. Okay, but the broader overview which needs to be written within the answer for this question is this, what I have just told you, that we cannot ignore the psychology of the leaders. And when we trying to understand the psyche of the leaders, this is where we are using what? Psychological approach. And psychology is the study of human behavior, how humans behave. So we cannot take away the psychology of the leaders when we are comparing the politics. And when we are studying the psychological factors also, then we are doing what? Truly comparative politics. Okay, so study beyond institutions and studying socio-economic, cultural, and the psychological factors imparts comparativeness to the comparative politics. So this will going to be the answer for this question. So from the first question itself was a bit tricky and out of league. Now the second question, very direct, straightforward question. Neoliberalism lightened neo-realist dark view of international politics, comment. So I hope no one would have faced difficulty while writing the answer for this question. Multiple ways through which we can start the answer for this question. Realist scholars are known as the children of darkness. This is exactly what has been asked. Liberals are known as the children of light because of their optimistic and positive outlook towards world politics. They believe man is rational, men can think about, humans are capable of engagement, and states can go for peaceful engagement and cooperation. Okay, so you are aware of neorealism and neoliberalism. I hope you are aware that we divide the study of IR in phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. One line which you can add is when neoliberalism and neorealism evolved. Phase 1 of international relation from Treaty of Westphalia till the end of First World War is known as phase 1 of world politics. 1919 to 1949 45 is known as the second phase of world politics. Now, in the first phase, Treaty of Westphalia established the concept of integrity sovereignty. It established the concept of balance of power. So first endeavor to bring delusion in balance of power was through League of Nation. League of Nations failed and we saw the emergence of the Second World War. Okay. So in this phase, we have seen the debate between idealist versus realist. Okay. In this phase, that is the phase of Cold War, we have seen the debate between neorealism versus neorealism. Okay. So this phase has seen the debate, that is the third phase has seen the debate between neorealism and neoliberalism. When it felt that now the politics of the world will be channelized on the lines of neoliberalism, which has four different schools, that is Republican liberalism, sociological liberalism, economic interdependence, and institutional liberalism. We saw the strengthening and the growth of international institutions during this phase. So it felt that politics of the world will going politics of the world will now be move on the lines suggested by neoliberals, but then emerge the K words neorealist and Mershimer, defensive realist and offensive realist, and they tilted the scale back again towards the school of neo-realism. So this is how you can frame an answer for this question. And as I said, I'm giving you the overview. The model answers you can see in the PDF. Okay. So these things you need to write in 150 words. This is what the challenge is. But this was a very straightforward and a direct question. I guess it's not the challenging one because the content is always there in our mind. Also, what you can write is that these schools emerge under behavioral revolution. Okay. And the work after the end of Second World War, most of the work was produced by US scholars. This line also you can write that with the end after the end of Second World War, IR as a subject shifted in US, and the endeavor of the US scholars was to produce scientific work under behavioral revolution, and neo-realists and neoliberals have projected their theories as science. Okay, so this is what I feel is a very direct question from the syllabus itself. Now explain the non-traditional security threats in the context of food and environmental crisis. So first thing we need to understand is which are non-traditional security threats. So explain the non-traditional security threats. So threats are of two types, traditional and non-traditional. Wars are considered as traditional threats. Mode of war could be any. It can be nuclear, biochemical, conventional to now cyber war. So earlier states were framing their policies to mainly deal with traditional threats. But post Cold War, with the end of post Cold War, 1945 onward, we are seeing the rise of non-traditional security threats. There is a list of non-traditional security threats, but question is specifically asking about the food and the environmental crisis. That explain the non-traditional threat in the context of these two crises. Otherwise, the other non-traditional security threats are nuclear proliferation, water crisis, illegal immigration, okay, secessionist violence, religious fundamentalism, money laundering, okay, climate change, environmental crisis. So I get global warming, okay, food and water insecurity. So these are non-traditional security threats. In the conclusion, you can write, I guess it is not there in your PDF, that UN by and large has been able to deal with traditional threats, but UN is not able to deal with non-traditional security threats, so rising non-traditional challenges. ठीक है ना? Under Millennium Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goals, UN is showing its concern for the rising non-traditional security threats. So if we know this much, that okay, these threats are considered as non-traditional threats, it is easy to frame an answer. Now, which school we can mention while framing an answer for this? No, this question can be your GS question also. GS में भी हो सकता था. अब difference क्या है? If you have to frame an answer for this question in GS, if you are writing in your optional, you do have to mention about Copenhagen School. ठीक है ना? So you will start your answer giving reference to the Copenhagen School. ठीक है? That is the idea of securitization. I hope all of you are aware of this. The idea of securitization. That issue will become more threatening, or we securitize the issues by the way we talk about that. So if, like in India, we feel that the biggest threat to the security is terrorism, but more number of people are losing their life in road accidents. So why road accidents are not being seen as a threatening or one of the biggest challenge? Because we do not talk about this. So each idea of securitization, rather than wars, what is the bigger threat which humanity will have to encounter in coming years or in future? Food and environmental crisis. Okay, so we need to start talking about these issues. So we need to mention about the Copenhagen School. So if you will write this much, this will give completeness to your answer. You can mention about Paris Agreement, you can mention about initiatives taken by UN for food and environmental crisis, you can talk about UN agencies who are dealing in this, and then you can write states are not showing commitment, US coming out of Paris Climate Accord. Okay, states are not engaging. Now, which theory of international relation emphasize on this? Critical theories. Within critical theories, which school? Green politics. ठीक है ना? तो अगर आप इतना लिखते हो तो this imparts completeness to your answer. ठीक है ना? This was a very direct question. Political socialization approach. Red lipstick movement, very direct question from feminism. Not there's nothing much to discuss. Just read the model answer. Okay, directly from feminism and political sociology approach, which is in the syllabus itself. So if you see the first question, so first three were first part political psychology, a bit challenging. So let's say if you are very confused that how to frame an answer, so first write what you are aware of. Write about neorealism, neoliberalism, right? Then write about non-traditional security threats. Red lipstick movement up from the feminism. Even if you are not exactly aware of the event, you can understand what feminist stands for. Okay, you can bring the name of scholars like Bivor. One is not born woman, one become woman. Personalist, political. Okay, then Judith Butler's concept of gender is performative term. So these things you can write even if you are not aware of the issue exactly, but do not get stuck. And psychological approach, even if you know this definition, that comparative politics is about studying socio-economic, cultural and the psychological factors, you can write a bit. You just have to write 150 words. So you can start comparative government and comparative politics. Psychological approach will going to be the approach emerge under behavioralism. We need to understand the psychology of the leaders. Only then we can say that we will be able to impart. Then we can say comparative politics is truly comparative. Just by comparing institutions, we will not be able to compare the politics of the two states. इतना भी लिखते हो तो ये it can work. You can fetch some marks in such a tricky question. ठीक है, so पहले वो करो जो confident हो. It will settle your nerves. You will feel okay. 4 parts are done. I'm left with just 1 part. Do not get stuck in the first part itself. Let's discuss the question 2, part A. Again, very interesting question being asked by UPSC this year. Okay, you can use lot of information from the current events. In fact, you should use information events which are happening in the present times, and the static part which you have from theory of democracy, then the theories of international relations. Okay, so what can be the structure? First, let's understand the question, and then let's see what can be the structure for what can be the structure for our answer. What all points we can add while framing an answer for this question. Okay. So the question is: world currently has been in the throes of twin process of democratic backsliding and democratic backlash. How would you explain this paradox? So this is very paradoxical. On one side, we can see democracy is under stress, democracy is under challenge world over. And another side, we can see that rise of or so much of protest movements we have seen in the world where people are raising their voice for protecting their liberties and the right to self-determination. So, इतना बताने से, I hope the broader answer which you need to write, you can understand लिखना क्या है. So, twin process of democratic backsliding, democracy under stress, and democratic backslash, that people wants to protect their liberties. One of the biggest liberty and the right and the freedom which people enjoy in a democracy is freedom of speech and expression. So we can see a lot of protest movement where people are ready to fight for the protection of their freedom of speech and expression. And today this event has happened after the mains exam, though just we have seen what has happened in Nepal. Now you can say democratic backsliding. No, it is not democratic backsliding. Despite democracy being established, despite Nepal declared itself as republic, the leaders were not able to protect the essence of democracy, and they themselves started behaving like monarchy. And the leaders of this Gen Z protest, they said that we do not want to change the political system. In fact, this protest emerged when they banned the social media, and social media emerged as a tool for the people world order to express themselves. So many Nepali students and the leaders said this became the flashpoint due to which people started coming together and they protested, and we have all seen what has happened in Nepal. But nowhere they have tried to change the political system. They are not demanding restore monarchy, and this is what democratic backlash this question is asking about. We have seen Arab Spring in West Asia. Okay, before Russia-Ukraine war, we saw Orange Revolution in Kiev. Okay, we have seen protest in Iran by the women for their right not to wear hijab. Okay, so this is what is, and now we have seen the protest in Nepal. But on the other side, what we are saying, junta leadership acquiring power in Myanmar, rise of right-wing ultranationalists world over who are showing authoritarian tendencies, Xi Jinping declaring himself as a leader for lifetime, Putin strongly controlling the state, and West blame Putin is suppressing the freedom of speech and expression. Same is the blame on the Central Asian leaders, and parallelly we are seeing the rise of religious fundamentalism world over. All these are the examples which we can write that why democratic backsliding is going on. So when we are saying that, now it was the view of the Republican liberals. So I always suggest to all of you that while framing an answer, wherever we can give reference to our theories of internationalism, wherever we can bring the views of the scholars who have given these theories of internationalism, that is the best way to frame your answer. Now, who are the most vocal supporter of strengthening democracy? Republican liberals. And it was their view that if they have given democratic peace theories, that two democracies do not fight with each other. Okay. And after the end of Second World War, the endeavor was to strengthen democracy world over. That is to strengthen the liberal democratic order. Okay. To strengthen the liberal democratic order. And UN as an institution was created with the objective to strengthen democracy. In fact, there was an organ in UN, Trusteeship Council, whose objective was this only: help the nascent democracies to become more mature. And once it was felt that by and large democracy has been stable, Trusteeship Council was dissolved. But right now, UN itself is grasping for breath. UN is under a lot of stress, and Indian government stand is high time to reform it. Okay, so then you can bring the name of few scholars like Farid Zikaria, that we have seen the rise of illiberal democracies. These things you can see in the PDF. Okay, otherwise, the broader dimension on which you need to write, this is what I have discussed, that the end of Cold War was seen as the triumph of liberal democracy by Francis Fukuyama, who gave the thesis of end of history. But in the recent times, we are seeing democratic backsliding. Tick. So, democratic backlash, democratic sliding, we can see that institutions, we can see that democratic backsliding, we can see that the uh, credibility of the institutions is eroding. And democratic backlash we are seeing in the form of wave of protest and civic assertion. Then in the end, you can give the reference of Hannah Arendt, civic republicanism, that if people will not participate in politics, and if politics is not deliberative, not participative, there's always a threat of rising authoritarianism. So you can mention the name of Hannah also. So I hope, so the question, just in the first glance, probably those who have written mains might have felt it that it's a challenging one. How to write it? It's not a challenging, it was just a tricky one. Okay. So first, always for a minute, think, okay, and try to make a structure. हमेशा structure पहले बनाओ लिखने से पहले. If you start writing, probably you will feel that irrelevant things you have written a bit, irrelevant things you have written earlier, and now you have exhausted your word limit, which is very important to follow. Otherwise, you will going to two things: one, negative marking if you'll exceed the word limit, and second, you will not be able to complete your question paper. So first 1 minute or 1.5 minute, make a structure. क्या पूछ रहा है? Democratic backsliding क्यों हो रही है? Okay, what it means? Institutions are, credibility of the institutions is under stress or it is eroding. Backlash कैसे हो रहा है? How we can think of this? ठीक? So rising authoritarianism, rising right-wing ultranationalism, religious fundamentalism is bringing democracy under stress. But parallelly, we are seeing what? The protest movement, as I said. Okay. civil right movement. So backlash is evident in the form of protest and civil right movements, and you can quote some examples. Then you can start with that Fukuyama declared that liberal democracy has won the war of ideologies. In the end, you can give reference of Hannah Arendt. Okay, so this is what you need to write in this particular answer. Next question was on expected lines and was a very direct forward, straightforward question. US withdrawal from WHO and why WHO is still vital for the global health agenda. It was on the very expected line that something on this UPSC can ask. Okay, so relevance and the importance of WHO. Straightforward, direct question. So the next question is: transnational actors have qualitatively transformed the world by the way of their fresh insights and actions. Illustrate your answer with examples. So first we need to know the transnational actors. Actors whose area of operation goes beyond state. They are transnational. What I said, actors whose area of operation goes beyond state. They are transnational. So state actors in world politics, non-state actors in world politics. Non-state actors, violent non-state and non-violent non-state actors, qualitatively transform the world by the way of their fresh insights and actions. So, when we are saying non-state actors are of two types, in fact, we can write domestic non-state and actors whose area of operation goes beyond state, transnational. There can be domestic NGOs, pressure groups, and violent domestic non-state actors. But they can be violent transnational non-state actors. So इसको ऐसे कर सकते हैं हम, non-state actors, domestic and transnational. This question is not asking about domestic, it is about transnational. So are we going to mention about transnational violent actors also? Yes, they are threat. They are also changing the dynamics of world politics. Violent actors like Islamic State, IS, it is making its presence right in Afghanistan or not? Yes, which is bringing IS in clash with Taliban. Al Qaeda is a violent transnational actor. So violent actors are also there. Then transnational non-violent actors. Transnational non-violent actors are MNCs, global NGOs like Red Cross, Amnesty International, and international organizations. International organizations are of two types: intergovernmental organization and supranational body. EU, UN, they are supranational bodies, and intergovernmental bodies like ASEAN, SAARC, where states have not diluted their sovereignty. Every party holds veto. So first you need to write about who are transnational. Transnational are of two types, violent and non-violent. Okay, non-violent, these are non-violent transnational actors, and even violent transnationals are influencing the or impacting the politics. Then you can write under the influence of transnational actors, international politics, which was the politics between the sovereign state, has changed into global politics because of the emergence of global governance. So, non-violent transnational actors has become the symbol of global governance. ठीक है? They have become the symbol of global governance. Who are the most vocal supporter of non-violent and non-state actors or transnational actors that they need to play a bigger role? Need is to bring the delusion in the sovereignty. Liberals. Within liberals, sociological liberals. They emphasize on non-violent and non-state actors. Thick and violent transnational actors has emerged as a threat for the security of the state. Then you can mention about few of the transnational actors, NGOs who are doing a lot of work like Amnesty, Greenpeace, uh, epistemic communities. One is IUCN, who is who has been involved in who has been involved towards making nuclear weapons delegitimized. They have developed nuclear taboo. They have played a vibrant role in the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. All these things you can write as an example where they are playing a bigger role. But do mention about the liberals, and then realist will say states will never compromise on sovereignty, and no amount of transnational actors can change the structure of world politics. Structure of world politics will remain anarchy, and sovereign states will never compromise on their core interest. ठीक है जी. So ये this is what you need to write. ये भी डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन था. Collective security and R2P conceptual question. So I hope you guys are well aware of the concepts of collective security and R2P. Conceptual है ये. First endeavor to ensure collective security and bring delusion and balance of power through League of Nations. Second by UNSC. It remained stuck, still not effective. States rely on balance of power. No article in UN which allows state to intervene on the issue of human rights. Article 2 of UN Charter states UN stands for sovereignty and integrity. Question mark emerged. What if states are themselves hurting the or violating the human right? This led to the emergence of the doctrine of R2P. तो ये बहुत डायरेक्ट स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन था. अगर आपको कॉन्सेप्ट्स you have the understanding, then you can easily write. Another question थोड़ा सा ट्रिकी है. फिर से ग्लोबल साउथ, सेंसिटिव मॉडल ऑफ ग्लोबलाइजेशन, ओवर सेंट्रलाइज्ड ग्लोबलाइजेशन. So global south sensitive model of globalization, a new model of globalization needs to be adopted, which should take care of the interest of global south and prevent the danger of over centralized globalization. So global south sensitive model of globalization would prevent the danger emanating from over centralized globalization. So first, what is globalization? Who are the vocal supporter of the forces of globalization? Liberals. Enhance economic interdependence. Who are the critic? Marxists. These are the forces of neocolonialism. Need is to change the present model of globalization and needs to make it more sensitive for the countries of global south. You can also write about what global south means, from where this terminology emerged, Brent line. Okay, you can make a small world map also showing global north and global south, Brent line. Okay, there's a difference between geographical north and global north. Australia, New Zealand are also the part of global north. China is still a part of global south, not acceptable to US. Okay, so you can use the terminology from where it has emerged. Then what global south sensitive model of globalization can be? NIEO, New International Economic Order, post Washington consensus. So these things you need to write, that how globalization can be sensitive towards the needs of the global south. So we need to change this over centralized globalization which is in the control of G7. यहाँ पे आप एमिनल वॉलरस्टीन को भी मेंशन कर सकते हो, मार्क्सिस्ट स्कॉलर, कोर पेरिफेरी, that it has only served the core at the cost of the periphery. So these were the questions which were challenging. So structure I have discussed. Direct questions you can read from the PDF. So let's shift to our paper 2 section B. Okay, so I hope the discussion which I have done in paper 1 part A will help you to understand that how challenging it is to frame your answers in mains, and first focus should be on the structure. What will going to be the structure of my answer? What all points I can think and add? So revision of syllabus, consolidation, and then think about the structures, right? And keeping yourself updated by reading the newspapers. You do not need to refer any other thing other than the newspapers. If you read your newspapers consistently, most of the things you will able to get from the newspapers itself. You just need to develop the knack of taking things from the newspaper and updating your notes a bit, but the basics will remain same. Okay, in the end you have to give reference to your basic static understanding of your papers, both paper 1 and paper 2. Static understanding, you can't ignore the static part of your syllabus, that it is all about the current thing. Okay, you need in your, even the question seems current in nature. In the end you have to give reference to the theories of internationalism. You have to bring the information, or you have to bring the conceptual understanding which you have built by going through the static part of your syllabus. So if you're writing on collective security, you need to know about this, that when was the first endeavor being taken to work towards collective security, है ना? When R2P as a doctrine or principle evolved. Globalization per question, right? But you need to know about the terminology when global south as a terminology evolved. So you need to revise your syllabus multiple times, and then you need to use the knowledge of your theories while framing your answers. Okay? So now section B of paper 2. Again, first question will going to be the most challenging one, right? And this is where I always say that try to finish these two questions first. Half of your nerves will be calmed, क्योंकि ये तो करने ही है और 5-5 आंसर लिखने हैं. Even if it is 150, you have to think, क्योंकि स्ट्रक्चर तो सबका बनाना है. So if you are able to finish these two questions on time in 45 to 50 minutes, आपका मेंस बहुत अच्छा होने वाला है. Okay, in the end you will see you will do well in your mains. इनमें बहुत टाइम लग गया, 1 hour 15 minutes, then फिर पैनिक बटन ऑन हो जाता है. ओके, तो देखते हैं इसमें से कुछ ऐसा क्वेश्चन विच इज चैलेंजिंग टू राइट. ठीक है, तो बताओ कोई आपको लगता हो तो इसमें कोई क्वेश्चन है ना. क्वेश्चन आया, China's growing footprint and a tangible shift in power dynamics in Bangladesh. We are seeing political turmoil. So first thing which you always need to understand is that always you need to give focus towards the immediate neighborhood. So again this year also we can see 3 questions have came from immediate neighborhood. यहीं से ही आया. So paper 2, almost all the questions came like, it was not like something has been asked which cannot be answered. It's like a balanced one. Questions from the immediate neighborhood, question on non-alignment, on India's nuclear policy, India's interest in Africa, dynamics of India-China. Okay, Dynamics of strategic autonomy, as it was strategic autonomy in the news class में कई बार कहा था, क्रैश कोर्स में भी किया. ओके, स्ट्रेटेजिक autonomy को इग्नोर नहीं करना है, वोकैबुलरी भी है आपके पास. So now the challenge was to finish it, right? Structure सही से बना के, और which I always say that it is always about India and its immediate neighborhood. So you can see first question is from India and its immediate neighborhood. Second question, India's aggressive posture during the Pahalgam attack, again from the immediate neighborhood. Then the last question, India, China, Nepal, is from immediate neighborhood. So three questions has been asked from India and its immediate neighborhood. One on our regarding our nuclear posture. Then India-Africa dynamics, dynamics of non-alignment, non-aligned movement and strategic autonomy. तीनों बहुत close questions हैं, near about same kind of, only just you have to play with the words. Then our ties with EU, जो हमने क्रैश कोर्स में भी किया था कि बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपेक्टेड है इंडिया EU रिलेशनशिप पर क्वेश्चन आना, as US EU ties are in tension and EU is looking forward to have good cordial ties with India. Okay, so tariff threats by US for both India and EU is bringing India and EU closer. So pehla question, China's growing footprint. First, dynamics has changed in Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina, Awami League has lost the control and an interim government has came to power, who is saying that China can increase its presence to increase its reach to northeast, not well taken by us. So current based भी है, आपको पता भी है. How China is increasing its presence here? Through BRI, Belt Road Initiative. Okay. Challenge for India, rising influence and presence of China in the region. Right. The irritant which prevails between India and Bangladesh, Tista issue not being solved. Issue of illegal immigration. But engagement with Bangladesh is also there through BBIN. Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal. We are engaging with Bangladesh under BIMSTEC. Okay. So, all the points, they were from the current dynamics. Would you agree with the contention India's inclination to a more aggressive, hyper realist posture since the Pahalgam attack, Operation Sindoor? So earlier India was not that aggressive towards the acts of terror. This government, after Uri attack, has taken a clear stand. Trade and terror cannot flow together. Then this operation has clearly bursted the nuclear hooks from Pakistan. This is what India wanted to prove. India's stand is, it is not a hyper realist posture. It was a calculated move by the government of India. Okay, that we need to increase the cost for the state of Pakistan for such violent acts. Okay, India has shown enough of patience, and our patience has been started seen by them as our weakness. So this is a calculated move. This action was never against the army of Pakistan. It was against the terror. It was clearly against the terror and their operatives. Our strikes were also measured and it was to hit the terror centers within Pakistan. That's how you need to write an answer for this question. तो इस क्वेश्चन में थोड़ा सा डिप्लोमेसी लाना पड़ेगा, थोड़ी सी डिप्लोमेटिक लैंग्वेज में आपको आंसर लिखना पड़ेगा. ठीक. सो टोटली आप क्रिटिकल नहीं हो सकते, थोड़ा सा बैलेंस व्यू लेके चलना पड़ेगा. ठीक. Third, for India, multipolar world also means multipolar Asia. बिल्कुल, we don't want a unipolar Asia at least. Probably we are fine aligning with US, but we can't afford to see a unipolar Asia where one of the pole is China, where China is being assertive and trying to assert its hegemony. So, unipolar Asia is the biggest threat for India's sovereignty and integrity. On these lines, you need to frame an answer for this question. फोर्थ तो हमने मल्टीपल टाइम्स क्लास में डिस्कशन किया. आई गेस ये तो आप लोगों के पास वोकेबलरी रटा होना चाहिए आपको. इज नॉन अलाइन मूवमेंट ग्रोइंग इन डिफरेंस हैज एनी फ्यूचर? फर्स्ट थिंग, you will not never accept we are showing indifference. PM Modi has addressed the virtual summit of NAM. Okay, NAM is a way to protect our strategic autonomy. NAM is a way to assert our leadership in global south. NAM is a way to assert pressure in UN for our permanent membership in UNSC, as we need the support of 2/3 members in General Assembly. NAM is a way to keep our strategic engagement intact in Africa. So nowhere NAM is of irrelevance for us. ठीक, तो ये तो बिल्कुल स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन था. फिफ्थ, again, historic ties between India and Japan grew into special strategic ties. From the notes itself, direct from the notes, right? Our strategic engagement with Japan has increased under our Act East policy. So I hope you remember it didn't started on the cordial note, as both ended on the opposite side of the Cold War. After 90s, when we started Look East policy, Japan became one of the closest economic partner. When we announced the Act East in 14, Japan became our strategic partner. Only irritant was the nuclear deal, which Japan was not ready to sign. Since 16, the deal has signed, the ties has become truly strategic, and now both have a same vision on Indo-Pacific, as both stand for freedom of free lanes of or the freedom of navigation. And we all know the rising or assertiveness of China is a challenge for both. Japan stand for FOIP. So Japan's FOIP clearly aligns with India's Act East, and both are engaging strategically under Quad. तो ये तो बिल्कुल डायरेक्ट स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन था. ठीक है. फिर critically analyze the different phases of India's foreign policy and current phase of energetic diplomacy. ये भी हमने क्लास में as such किया था, तो आप एक बार फिर भी पढ़ लेना. बहुत स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन आया. अगला भी, इंडिया मेंटेन स्ट्रॉन्ग टाइज with countries that will assure free and open Indo-Pacific. Free and open Indo-Pacific is the vision of Japan. So another straightforward question. Tariff threats have pushed India EU closer. फिर another question आया strategic autonomy पर. Strategic autonomy. So if non-aligned movement was the way to assure strategic autonomy, presently multi-alignment is the way to attain strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy means ability to take our own independent decisions. Concerns being raised by many that close alignment with US probably can undermine our autonomy. I used to tell that still we are far from relying on US. Yes, things suddenly change under the leadership of President Trump, but nowhere, despite aligning with US, we were ignoring our engagement with other players. Still, Russia is very important for us from our objective of indigenization of our defense needs. ठीक है ना? Having highest trade with China, vibrant engagement with EU, engagement with Japan. So, despite strong alignment with US, never India compromised on its strategic autonomy. US pressurized us to cut down our ties with Iran. US pressurized us to reduce oil imports from Russia. You all know from the recent statement that they are blaming India for Russia's war in Ukraine, that we are funding by buying oil. Totally shattered by the statement by the foreign minister of ours that Europeans are buying more oil than us. So nowhere alignment with US has undermined our autonomy. If we are with G7, we are with NAM too, right? So all this clearly reflects that India gives importance to its strategic autonomy. So right now we are not pursuing non-alignment. What we are pursuing is issue-based alignment. Okay. So this is what the policy we are pursuing right now, that is issue-based alignment. Tick. So rest of the questions, I guess, were very straightforward, direct forward. You just need the content with you, and if you have the content, it was very easy to frame answers for this question. I guess from both the papers, paper one, paper two, and from all the sections, I guess this section was the most scoring and the most easiest one to attempt. ठीक है ना? बहुत डायरेक्ट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चंस आए हैं इंडिया एंड द वर्ल्ड से, दैट इज पेपर वन पार्ट बी से. So model answers, as I said, you can see the PDF from the link. You can open the PDF and you can read the model answers. For doubts, you can reach to us. You can comment below the video. I'll clear your doubts if you will have any. And then we are, as I said, we are starting and launching our new batch from 20th of November. And we're going to have our test series program also from 9th of November. Okay. So those who are done with the foundation and want to keep themselves in touch and they want to keep them evaluated, want to improve their marks as already written in mains but feeling stuck, they can take this test series program. The first test will be on 9th of November. We'll share the PDF of the schedule of the test series also. You can find the schedule of the test series also in the PDF, which is there in the description box of the video. And this mentorship, this test series program is for those, at least those who are done with the foundation. ठीक है ना? So those who want to do the foundation, they can join the new batch from 20th of November. If you are aspiring for 26 or 27, then you can join the foundation batch. If you are done with foundation and you want consistency and how to improve your answers and a feedback with proper discussions, you lack in some concepts. For this, you can take the test series program. Okay. Wishing you all best of luck. Do well. Take care.